And here in California, elected representatives and members of the Jewish community, including Jewish people here in Kern County, are responding to the attacks by Hamas. Capitol correspondent Eitan Wallace is joining us live from Sacramento this morning with a closer look at the reactions pouring in. Eitan, good morning.
Well, Maddie, good morning. Maddie and everybody in Kern County, thanks. Good to be with you. And let me tell you, it's not often that we see Democrats and Republicans united on an issue, but as it pertains to this Hamas attack into Israel, well, members of both parties have expressed certainly a sense of shock, but also much support for the people of Israel. You're looking at rocket after rocket after rocket. Hamas fired into Israel early Saturday morning. Hamas, which is a U.S. designated terror group based in Gaza, fired more than 2,000 rockets into Israel just in the first few hours of the attack. At the same time, Hamas launched a ground invasion in southern Israel. Its fighters attacking people at a music festival, at a bus station, at a fire station, and inside people's homes, among other places, killing more than 700 Israelis, both civilians and soldiers alike, by the way. And they also kidnapped at least 100 others, bringing them back into Gaza. Now, in Washington, President Biden and the vast majority of Democrats and Republicans in Congress have come out in support of Israel, pledging to aid the Jewish state in any way possible. And here in Sacramento, a very similar sentiment from Republicans and Democrats alike. Let me tell you what Governor Gavin Newsom had to say. He wrote this, quote, "There is simply no justification for this. I stand with Israel and its people in denouncing this horrific act of terrorism. We must demand an end to this violence now." And Bakersfield very own Republican Assembly member Vince Fong writing this, "There is no justification for the murderous attacks on our strongest ally in the Middle East. We stand with Israel." Now, since Hamas first launched the attacks, Israel declared a formal state of war. The Israeli Air Force, as you just saw there in Alice Barr's report, has since launched airstrikes, Israel says, are targeting Hamas assets, buildings, and rocket launchers. Per the Gaza Health Ministry, though, more than 400 people there, including Palestinian civilians, are dead as a result of those retaliatory airstrikes so far. So you can imagine, very, very, very challenging for so many people involved. And Maddie, I must say here that, I can't report this without acknowledging a personal note for me that I do have loved ones in Israel. I have my cousins there, my aunt, my great aunt, all over the country in the greater Tel Aviv and Jerusalem areas. Of course, they are okay, thankfully, but they have spent certainly much of that weekend in bomb shelters in the greater Tel Aviv area. And then, of course, I also have loved ones like so many Israelis. In fact, about 300,000 Israelis. Among them, some of my loved ones who have been called up to the reserves as we anticipate what will likely be a ground invasion into Gaza. By the way, a very bloody ground invasion to come. Maddie, back to you in Bakersfield.
And Eitan, you're not alone. I know that this hits home for thousands of members of the Kern County Jewish community as well. How big is that community here?
Absolutely, yes. Well, it certainly is in the thousands. And, here's something for the people of Kern County to remember, Maddie, and it's a great point that you bring up because, remember, Kern County is about, give or take, 1 million people, right? The population of Kern County, about 1 million people. Well, the state of Israel is about 9 million people. Now, remember, in Kern County, 1 million, that can seem like a lot, but we know when you think about it, I lived in Kern County for 3 years as a reporter. There used to be at 17, as our viewers may remember. Even 1 million people, still, there is a big connection. People are connected to people. People know each other. It's a small town feel. Well, the very similar in the Jewish community and within Israel. Everybody seems to have a connection to everybody. Somebody knows somebody who has been impacted by this situation, as I just said with my own cousins there. But if you talk to anybody in the Kern County Jewish community or just folks within Israel, somebody knows somebody who has been impacted. So, of course, this definitely hits close to home, even an ocean away, all the way in Bakersfield, California. I guarantee you this hits close to home for the Jewish community there. And finally, speaking of hitting close to home, I should just say the Capitol building in the back, well, the governor says here in Sacramento, it will be lit in blue and white tonight in honor of Israel. Maddie, back to you in Kern County.
Eitan, do we have any idea what comes next? We know that, again, Israel has said it's retaken some of its territory and that it's ordered a full siege of Gaza and gathered these troops. Do any of your relatives or anyone that you're talking to have an idea of how long of a war they are preparing for going forward?
Well, that is certainly a great question, and I think even the Israeli officials will acknowledge if they do launch a ground invasion, which is certainly looking that way into Gaza, because they say they need to go after all the Hamas assets over there, not just from those airstrikes that they've been doing, it seems, not just in this war, but multiple times over the last decade since Hamas took power in 2006. So the question, as for your question, it's a great question. You know, just in those airstrike wars that we've seen over and over again in the last decade, those have lasted at times a whole summer, months at a time. So without being able to, of course, fully predict this, this is really the first time Israel is considering even a ground invasion into Gaza. And as a result, that could be weeks, if not months. And as the Israeli Prime Minister has said, there will be major losses. It's going to be as he said, a war that will bear major price, a major price for the people of Israel, and that's very sad, because if you talk to even Palestinians, they'll acknowledge this doesn't just impact the Israelis, this will impact Palestinians. We're seeing innocent Palestinians killed as well, all as a result of this Hamas attack into Gaza. So really, on a personal note, I can probably say without giving too much commentary here, nobody wins. Everybody is impacted, and at the end of the day, really hits close to home. And of course, a lot of prayers in the Jewish community and around the world, hoping for peace very soon. Maddie.
Absolutely, and we join you in those prayers, Eitan. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and here locally, Temple Beth El is holding a vigil to pay respects to the victims in Israel. It's happening tomorrow night in Northeast Bakersfield on Loma Linda Drive, starting at 7 p.m. And later this morning, coming up in about 30 minutes, we'll speak with the president of the temple to talk a little bit more about the local impact of these attacks.